So yeah, let's get started. My name is Takumi Kinjo. I'm the partner marketing manager here at Figured, and we're here today to talk to you about designing scalable agri value-added services. I'm joined by my colleague Darren Mulhall, who is our partner success manager for Australia, and she's formerly an agri advisor herself, who used to work at an agri accounting practice in Ireland. And we're really fortunate to be joined today by Pete Davis of Principal Focus, as well as Mark Morton from Agribusiness Concepts. We'll have Pete and Mark here for panel discussion, so feel free to jump in with Q&A with any questions that you have. And yeah, we'll have Mark sharing his perspective as a advisor slash agri consultant, as well as Pete as a advisor slash accountant. So good to hear the perspective of the full farming team here. So what we want to cover today, we really want to make this webinar really practical, very useful for everyone here. It's not meant to be conceptual. It's designed to give you some really clear next steps that you can take and implement today. So, for example, at the end of this webinar, we'll expect that you'll be able to identify 10 to 20 clients within your current portfolio today, equip you and your team to have really interesting and valuable forward-looking conversations with those clients, and be really clear about the role that you want you and your practice to play in your client's business. And we'll help you achieve that. We're doing this because there are some really clear signs in the industry that farmers need to be planning more. And I don't think anyone here today would really argue otherwise. And the thing is, farmers recognize the need to plan too. According to AgriWeb's 2024 State of the Farmer report, the number one priority for farmers in Australia is increasing profitability. And that's what a forward-looking budget and plan will help them accomplish. In a couple of minutes, Pete and Mark will go into more detail on this. But the thing is, we really want to point out that it's not just from our perspective important that farmers are planning, but it's important that they're planning with the right people that will bring them the right results. And that's you today on this webinar. So by the end of this session, we'll show you how easy it is to design and deliver productized service packages, just like this one here, a completely productized service model that you can deliver at scale using Figured. This particular example is something we developed with one of our partners. And things, we're not talking about a revolution here. It's a relatively straightforward service. It's essentially a forward-looking budget cash flow forecast with a different degree of variance reporting at different frequencies. But the thing is, it's really helped this partner that we worked with scale their planning services and make that possible. And their clients really value the clear proposition that is being put in front of them as well. Now, the key to these services being scalable is that it requires purpose-built tools with out-of-the-box functionality. Each of these tiers shouldn't be massively high touch or involve highly manual processes. We want your time being spent with clients, helping them with their business, not on processes. Now, in the last webinar, I'll just do a quick recap of that. We shared this framework that we've been using to help firms build an effective approach to value-added services. There's prioritizing the clients that need and value these services the most, so you're not left with a lack of clarity on who to start with. Then comes productizing, a streamlined service offering. Now, it's crucial to productize services in a way that simplifies both their assembly and their delivery. We'll discuss how to create a structured plan that aligns with your current team, processes, and your client base. Now, today we're going to focus on the first two, prioritize and productize. So to start with prioritization, unlocking this is often the key to getting started. You don't want to try to boil the ocean, get buried in a project so large by taking on too many planning clients at once. That takes away from your core business. Where firms are finding the most success is in segmenting their client base based off of client needs, then prioritizing the clients that need and will value the service the most. That way, you know exactly who to start with, what they need, how you can add value beyond compliance to their business. And this makes it really easy to get started, which in some cases can be the hardest part. So as a starting point, I'll share this example here, which is what we mean by segmenting your clients, or at least an example of it. These are things listed here that are easily identifiable within your client data and your personal knowledge of your clients. And you're able to then segment, once you've identified these things, you can segment your clients in different ways. So for example, you could find clients that you could work with more efficiently. Maybe you're doing a bit of planning with them today, but there's a more efficient way to be able to scale that. Or those that have growth opportunities. and you can really help them step into that opportunity. Or those that are under pressure and might need your intervention to really support their business. Now, the great thing about this is that you probably already have an idea of some clients that might fit in different segment or some of these segments here. But if not, like we said, they're easily identifiable characteristics, and you can segment your clients in this way. So I'll stop talking here and then open up for conversation with Mark and Pete, both of who are really clear on the type of clients that they choose to work with and what services to provide them. Now, the question is, now that you have a way to segment your clients, how do you decide where the biggest opportunities are and what role you as an accountant should play? So, Mark, I'll start by asking you a question. You had an interesting point in our conversation the other day around the changing banking environment, how it's placing greater pressure on farmers. Can you share your thoughts on that topic and where you think things are heading?
Thanks, Kev. Nice of you to lead out, hard and strong. Thanks for the late tackle. It's quite an interesting discussion where the Australian banking market sits at the moment. And I made the comment that I think the Australian banking environment is particularly unbalanced. We have a situation where the dominant rural lender in Australia, the National Australia Bank, has declared their position as being, one word, full. Their books, limited appetite to take on new risk. Other banks, Rabo's pretty happy where they sit. So I guess what we're saying is that there's probably not the competition for banking services that we'd like to see, which leads to the opportunity, where's the next disruption going to come from? And I was really intrigued by where Figured was sitting when we went to Auckland, some of the developments in New Zealand. So whilst we might see that banking environment as a bit staid and a bit unfortunate, but I think there's some marvellous opportunities coming around, particularly around disruption and some of the work you guys are doing.
Oh, thanks, Mark. And Pete, that insight into the changing bank environment, that ties closely into an opportunity to help your clients that you've identified around providing that CFO system and a structure in place so that you get not just better outcomes with the banks, but obviously you help your clients run a more profitable business. So thinking about the context of identifying that opportunity and that client need and bridging the gap between them. Can you tell us more about the CFO system that you help to provide your clients and implement with them?
Yeah, firstly, starting with Figured, we've all got clients that are absolutely fabulous and going 100 miles an hour and achieving fabulous results. But there's always a group of clients who want change, they want to do better, and they want to achieve more. And they're the first clients that we're targeting for Figured when we started the process off about 5 years ago. Because they're willing to, they want to adapt new systems and processes, which gives them a greater opportunity to achieve higher profits. We've rolled the Figured implementation services that we provide into what we call CFO meetings. So we're having monthly, quarterly CFO meetings with clients depending on their nature. If you're a broadacre cropper out at Nyngan, you probably don't need to get together every month with your accountant to look at the forecast. Whereas if you're a dairy farmer in the Hunter Valley, spending time each month with your accountant looking at the results and numbers is a worthwhile endeavour. So we've turned Figured into a service both in terms of CFO meetings. We prepare budgets for help some clients prepare their budgets. We either prepare it completely with them or we just review the budgets they've done. And then we're involved in longer term planning and the ability to buy new properties and grow, and using Figured as a tool for those solutions as well.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. So that idea around structure and the advisor being the person that provides that structure and the frequency that the client requires. Mark, that's also quite an important value to you as well, the idea of that consistency. And I think that's part of your 3 Cs when it comes to working with your clients, right? Are you able to share a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. Look, one of the points, the 3 Cs straight out: consistency, communication, and the ability to create confidence. The extension of what Pete was talking about, the CFO role, but extending that further to provide a pretty robust oversight process. So asking those questions: what are we seeing? What are we hearing? What should we be seeing? And importantly, within the Figured processes, and the tools you've developed, being able to stimulate those questions. So it's about creating curiosity. And so I come back to it. What are we seeing? How are we communicating? Asking our clients what would they like to be seeing? What are we missing? And I guess the summary is that in ag at the moment, I don't think we've seen a more volatile environment in terms of commodity prices, weather, which actually creates the opportunity. So rather than seeing that as a negative, there's some marvelous opportunities out there that we'd like to help our clients take. And that communication, both, we talked about banks, but let's step that back a bit. Communicating within the family and within the network, so there's a shared outcome. Our clients feel like they're achieving. They see those points of success. So when they look at their end of month data, they see things progressing where they like to progress, or they're seeing it diverge. Therefore, we take steps to bring it back to, and that intervention early. How do we respond to it? How do changing seasonal circumstances, changing market circumstances, and importantly, changing people's circumstances. What it is that the clients are looking to achieve as a family, as a business, whether it's a corporate, and it's never static. But you open up an environment to ask those questions and listen to the answers.
Mark, 100% agree with that. You use the word confidence. I use the word mindset. And farmers, I think all human beings are hardwired to probably go a bit negative at times. And I think sitting across the table, half our job is to get the mindset right and to identify the opportunities and the possibilities, because they're just endless. But it's sitting down, and Figure's a great tool to work with clients on that.
But you'd see the same story, that clients are looking to ourselves, looking for a validation and point, do you really think this can work? I said, yeah, I believe it could. These are the steps we need to put in place to see that we're working.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, on this idea that you need to be able to demonstrate some impact to your clients. And a lot of times when, we're talking to accounting practices that are starting to get into this this role of being that forward-looking, windscreen view for their clients. Some of the difficulty is in really identifying where to start, what need to fulfill, and how they can communicate that value to their customer. And Pete, just last question. You had a really interesting analogy around farming being a game of inches. And I think that's a really interesting way to be able to communicate, or I guess to frame up and then communicate to clients the role of what a proactive planning service would look like for them. Are you able to share a little bit more on that game of inches analogy?
Yeah, I suppose very quickly, planning, farmers don't plan well in Australia. There's a joke here, 54% of clients have a plan, but only 29% have it written down. I think that's funny. But I think we've got to increase planning and getting clients to understand business models that'll give them a 5% return on assets and what ratios they need to achieve those particular outcomes. So I think they're building blocks, and then our figured budgets and scenarios go off on that. But there's a famous speech called the Inches speech. Al Pacino, as a football coach, gives it in a movie called Any Given Sunday. If you type in Inches speech into YouTube, you'll be able to see it. But the inches are all around us, and we know that the difference between winning and losing is when all those inches add up. So there's lots of opportunities available for clients, but they quite often can't see them. And it's only in those processes that you get in a CFO meeting or a discussion around numbers that they come out.
Well, thanks, guys. I'll wrap it up there, the first panel discussion. But that won't be the last time you hear from Peter Mark. There are a couple more sessions where we'll be discussing different topics with them. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, so I think, interesting segue is that idea that, farmers, they have a plan in their head, but they don't have it written down on paper. And I think when looking at where to start, that's a good way to start thinking about where the opportunity to get more sort of concrete plans with your clients might lie. So thinking about where many firms are at now, where we think it's important to, and then where we think it's important to get to. Well, it's really important to note that we're not saying that if you want to grow your planning services, then you need to go out and find new clients to plan with because your current clients haven't expressed interest in planning. Like Pete said, there's probably a bunch of farmers that really they're stressing about a plan. They want to plan, but it's in their head and they're not communicating the need to do a formal plan with their accountant with you. So it's really the opposite of that. We know that when firms take on this initiative to plan more, the top performing firms source 79% of new advisory revenue from their existing tax and compliance clients. So the opportunity sits there within your portfolio, and the demand sits there too. It's just a matter of sort of tapping into it and having a service model that enables you to take advantage of it. So when looking at your current portfolio, it's important to identify where that new revenue will come from. This pyramid here, it's not representative of all firms, of course, but broadly speaking, this is a typical breakdown of client portfolios that we've seen in the market. You have your top 10% or so of clients that sit at the top of the pyramid. You're probably doing some planning with them. They're a bit high touch. It's a white glove service, but it is difficult to scale that. Then you have those that you do provide a plan for when a situation or catalyst occurs, but it's ad hoc. For example, when they need it for the bank, there's a succession planning requirement or a significant purchasing decision that needs to be made. So it's very reactive and it can be disruptive. And in the ever-widening middle band is a cohort of clients that could and should be planning, but haven't expressed interest yet. So those are the ones that probably they have it in their head. It's just they need a more formal outlet for that. So you're probably not providing a formal plan to them in a structured way. And often your current relationship with these clients, it's based around tax. So what we want to do is move from this breakdown here to this breakdown here on the right. You'll see that the two segments in the middle become that middle majority, which represent a significant opportunity if a scalable service is implemented within your firm. So the question to everyone on the call today is, could technology allow you to take some of that white glove, high touch advisory service and layer it into that middle majority in a really efficient way? And that's what we're here to be able to provide you. And just lastly, I'll just note that, there's always going to be some clients that don't want or won't express interest in it. And that's totally fine too. We're not saying go after everyone. We're saying prioritize the ones that need and value your service the most. So there'll be some clients that, might end up always being a tax and compliance only relationship, and that's okay. So in the same way as prioritizing customers is critical, so is productizing the services that you deliver. There are stacks of features and outputs that are available out of the box and fully formed from a purpose-built product for planning like Figured. And this is what we're really excited about. This will be the meat of the webinar today, which Darren will take you through in more detail. We've heard from our partners everywhere that they really want to see how to implement this. And so that's what we want to show you. They want to know how to actually assemble these services with Figured. What can you do? What are the standardized outputs we're talking about? And how they enrich with a number of value-added agri-specific insights that are built off of years of your experience, powered by technology created specifically for agri accountants that you can then take to your clients. So today is really about helping you do that, stepping into that opportunity and unlocking it together. Now, some people may be wondering if they could deliver a productized service with general accounting tools that they currently use today, such as spreadsheets. But the fact is, spreadsheets were never designed to be a specialist tool. They definitely serve a function, but they were made to serve deliver against very broad needs. The thing is, agri advisors are specialists and spreadsheets are not. So when spreadsheets are used as an agri advisory tool, they become complex. They involve double handling, and they're often highly personalized, and all of those things make it really difficult to scale. So you're thinking about tapping into that middle majority and doing that in a standardized, achievable way. You really are looking for a purpose-built tool that's designed to achieve exactly that. So shortly, Darren will show you what budgeting and planning in a specialist tool such as Figured looks like. But before we get there, I thought I'd ask Mark and Pete about this topic. Pete, from an accounting firm perspective, recognizing that both spreadsheets and a purpose-built tool like Figured have a role to play. Where should agri advisors use spreadsheets versus specialist tools?
Yeah, I mean, as an accountant, we live in Excel. I make the joke that I write love letters to my wife in Excel. And Excel's a fabulous tool. I've written business plans that have won Australian Business Awards in Excel. It's a fabulous tool. It's a fabulous analysis tool, but it's not a financial reporting system. Full stop. I need actual versus budget reporting. I need to be, doing plans and things like that. Spreadsheets, as you said, Takumi, end up being too complex, and in clients' hands with functions like if functions and lookup functions built into it, there's always errors in spreadsheets. So I find spreadsheets fantastic for analysis in terms of buy-sell decisions, in terms of livestock trades, working out our profitability and return on capital for livestock trades and things. I think they're incredibly useful, but they're not a financial reporting system, full stop.
Thanks, Pete. And Mark, from a consultant's perspective, you also spoke about the idea of consistency. Can you share a bit of your thoughts around dollar consistency?
I share a similar view to Pete around the use of Excel spreadsheets, and we find our time becoming quite consumed by building spreadsheets, and at the expense of communicating some of those key things back to clients. So I see the financial reporting process that Pete referenced, the standard P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, actual and predicted, they become consistent conversations with all clients. So we have the robustness around it and the integrity around that the process that Pete mentioned. The use of spreadsheets for activity-based costings. So I've got some good data to go into Figured, and then the use of spreadsheets after the event to provide some of my analysis around key numbers, and some of that sits out, brings some of the agronomic and livestock considerations into play. But the essential point, I'll say that a focus point is having that core financial data, profit and loss, P&L, balance sheet. And I guess the other point from my own practice, it actually gives me scalability options, because then by using what you guys have put together, I've got the capacity to take on more clients, whereas and I don't have that time taken up in building a spreadsheet. I've already got that foundation set.
Another point, Mark, is generally speaking, most spreadsheets aren't in the cloud, whereas Figured sitting in the cloud means I can share it with lots of people. So I can different family members accessing Figured. I can have my banker on a read-only basis come in and see where I'm sitting. My accountant can be working as well. So I'm just finding that in terms of the communication piece of your 3Cs, Figured helps in that process.
Yeah. Times two.
Mm.
Cool, thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm sure there's quite a lot we can say on this topic, but I'll move on and touch on this idea that we've established why spreadsheets may not be the solution for a scalable agri service, but what is the solution? So if you're an agri accountant, you need a tool that was specifically built for managing agri data and outputs, and to do so in a scalable way for your practice. That means a tool that allows you to unlock the potential of your data and make use of it, because Figured integrates with cloud accounting software on a single ledger. It removes a significant amount of double handling and manual input, not just with financial data, but production data too. And it gives you the ability to report on both really effectively and demonstrate the relationship quite easily between the two to your clients. Figured also gives you the power of automation. So when your client data is in a platform that is designed to make use of it, it gives you out-of-the-box agri-specific reporting capabilities. So you're not doing the same thing multiple times for the same client or different clients. A lot of that automation allows you to take care of that functionality for you. And having the ability to produce reports requires you to actually deliver those reports to clients. And that's what Figured report packs are made for. It gives you the ability to produce custom report templates, which are then populated with your client data on Figured, which you can then schedule to get sent to your clients at a cadence of your choosing. So it makes it really efficient to engage with your customers as well. And importantly, at the end of the day, the people on this webinar will be accountants working at an accounting practice for the most part. So you need a tool that was built to integrate with all your agri accounting workflows. And that's specifically what Figured was meant to do. And all of this, it allows you to empower your people. So it's not just the directors or the most senior advisors participating in that high value, engaging, and interesting work. It allows you to bring in a wider range of staff into this type of work. So you're able to, upskill, empower, and, raise the standard of the quality of your work within your practice as well. We've spoken about just there the how built for purpose agri accounting tool will help you deliver a scalable planning solution for your firm and your clients. And this is just another way to illustrate what we mean by that. So in the past, the traditional ways of working meant that for every client you provide planning to, it'll create more work, more complexity for your practice. So right there's a fundamental misalignment between what your clients need, that planning service, and what you need as a firm to be able to, limit capacity or manage capacity. And so how many of you on this webinar in the past have thought about doing more of that type of forward-facing work for your clients, or even really wanted to, but were held back by capacity or resource constraints? It's quite a common situation that we've heard of when talking to a lot of our partners across not just Australia, but the world. But the thing is, once you've established a productized and standardized service, that misalignment gets completely reversed. Suddenly, the more clients you bring into that productized service, the more standardization you can achieve within your practice. So you remove the ad hoc, one-off complex workflows, standardize them, and it allows you to then scale that delivery. And importantly, you're not just bringing on benefits for your practice. You're giving your farmers the benefits of your financial expertise that they need. And it will be a process. You won't get there overnight, but you can make a start, and making a start will make an impact. Just like how you can prioritize your target clients, and you can prioritize what services you deliver as well. There's no need to do everything at once for everyone. So yeah, on that point, I'll hand over to Darren, who'll take you through what these productized outputs look like. And she'll discuss with Peter Mark how they use these outputs as well, and importantly, how they communicate the value of their services to their clients. I'll just hand over to Darren now.
Great. Thanks so much, Takumi. Firstly, I'm going to show you our three-way forecasting tool that allows us to set a budget on farm over a 12-month period. We appreciate that a lot of your clients need to be making decisions now that are going to have a short-term impact on the day-to-day running of their farming business. Here, you can create a full top-down plan and create something that is actionable for your farmers now. A forecast and set of outputs can turn goals into a full plan of action. Before we get into the how we can create the budget, let's first take a look at some of the key outputs that can be provided to your clients. Creating our budget in the planning grid gives us options to generate some key reports, such as our forecasted farm monthly cash flow for the year, our P&L report to estimate the profit or loss for the farm, and also the balance sheet report for the forecasted year. You can add extra levels of detail to reports by having the option to show stock quantities and display any notes that have been added to your budgeted figures so that everyone can be kept in the know as to why certain assumptions were made. Our statement of position report allows to generate the financial position of the farm at market value on a set date and make an informed decision that is based on live information. We can show a comparison period on reports and compare to last month or last year, for example. We can also take a look at the farm summary to give a total overview of the main areas of the farm based on the budget. This can show some important KPIs relating to the farm. Some visual graphs can be key to highlight some of the top operating expenses for the farm and how they relate over a 3-year period. And also see the income and expense trend on farm for the last 6 years. These graphs can allow us to make it relevant to your farmers in a visual way, but also standardizing the output across the practice. It makes this information comparable and means no matter who is creating your report, you'll be able to compare and contrast these outputs across your team. Our report packs can allow us to compile all these key reports you want to share with your clients into one file and could be scheduled to send out. We can also help you automate the follow-up reports to schedule over the coming months, highlighting where the actual data then sits against your budget and update the forecast as required. Now let's take a look at how we can get to that endpoint of being able to generate these reports and provide that value for your clients. To start, the budget can be set at a cash or profit basis, depending on how you and your firm like to plan. We can then import last year's actuals farm data as a baseline for the upcoming planning year. Our imported data is easily editable by selecting an individual cell to make changes or can make adjustments to the total value in an account. We can easily select to copy and increase or decrease our data on a month, bi-monthly or quarterly basis. We also have the option to spread our data on a curve based on last year's actuals. So this means we can make a change to the total value with the selected account and keep the weightings that fall in each month to match what actually happened in the previous year. You can also increase or decrease the value in an account by a set percentage to account for inflation or overall decrease across an account. This also keeps the weightings of last year's actuals and makes the change to overall total. We have the option to enter dynamic mode for certain accounts if necessary. This allows to budget certain costs on a dollar per head, dollar per hectare, or dollar per DSC basis for an associated tracker. You can add notes to any data in your budget to leave comments or assumptions. These can be displayed in your reports as previously shown. This isn't set and forget either. You can reforecast the remainder of the year as actuals come in from your accounting software. Take a snapshot to save the forecast and use the most up-to-date business plan reflecting reality on the farm. We all know problems can come out of the blue, whether it can be a shift in commodity prices or interest rates, a weather event, or a major repair bill. Everyone in your team has the ability to reforecast and analyse the impact this would have on your farmers. I've previously worked in an agri accountancy and advisory practice in Ireland and actively use this planning tool on Figured. I have worked with farmers and know how relevant it is for them to have a budget in place and be able to reforecast their plans. Let's now open up to the panel and talk with Mark and Pete about their use of Figured and the benefits they have found it has for them and their clients. Mark, firstly, as an agri consultant, how has Figured and the planning tools particularly impacted the way that you work with your farming clients?
Darren, I'll reference one specific example. So we've all worked through, we can put a budget together over the 12 months. But what happens when, in this particular case, where a part of their professional advice network highlights a specific opportunity that actually increases the risk profile, but it's a legitimate opportunity. So there's a sense of apprehension. So that process of being able to model out what an intended outcome could look like, sense of achievement, and then keeping our eyes right across what's going on as the year and the season progresses. So we've got eyes on over that time, and we're continual reforecasting. Is it coming together? Yes, it is, highlighting its success. And as you made the point, it changes. This is not a straight line business. So the point planning tool, it's with the homework done, as I said, prior to it, as you said, dollars per DSC, hectare per unit. We can put that together quite quickly. Then we'll spend our time talking about what we need to put in place to make sure the plan comes together, and that we're monitoring it quite intensely, particularly when clients are looking to take opportunities that might have been outside their comfort zone previously.
Yeah. And I think, plans will change on a farm day to day, and being able to do that reforecast, I think, is super important.
It continually changes. So I look at Figured as if it's like a GPS, doing multiple 2 centimetre adjustments as the season progresses. So we've got that tool to, as I said a couple of times, keep our eyes on what's going on and not get caught by adverse and opportunities that come up.
Yeah,
I think it's the opportunities, Mark, that work really well for me. I took a client who, after they'd harvested their wheat crop, and showed them the inches speech and asked them to sit down and identify the inches that they had missed, I suppose, the opportunity lost in the previous year. They had a profit of about 300K. They identified inches and put values next to it, and they worked out they could have made a $550,000 profit. So they left $250,000 on the table. That's pretty easy to do in hindsight. What we need to be doing is working that muscle and being able to do that proactively in the forecasts and take advantage of those opportunities. You said 2 centimeters, Mark. 2.5 centimeters is an inch. So it's going and finding all those inches in the numbers. And
But some of us are still metric, you know. Yeah, we can.
but it's about finding all those inches in the numbers and the opportunities and discussing it with others, getting your nutritionist in, getting your agronomist in, getting your banker and accountant in to some of those meetings, but spend 2 or 3 hours per month, every farm business sitting down, looking through the forecasts and asking the questions. You talked about curiosity, Mark. How do I do something different that will result and bring a different result? Yeah.
Actually, you make a really good point, Pete, about those farmers we work with, they're building a wider and more comprehensive professional advice network. So we're both taking that input from that network, aggregating it and making a call on it, but we're also holding that network accountable. So you've actually made a recommendation. Let's see how we go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Involving everyone around the boardroom table, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And Pete, are there any certain processes within your business that have become more efficient since starting using Figure than these planning tools?
Yeah, but believe it or not, the compliance process is more efficient. So, for example, we don't ask clients for stock numbers and valuations and things at the end of the year because they're already in Figured. Tax planning processes, our tax planning with clients on Figured is substantially more efficient than tax planning with clients who are in other systems because they've reforecast before tax planning, they've reforecast what they expect the annual results to be, and we tax plan off the forecast results. We've actually doing tax planning. We start in September for some clients, so we're actually almost 2 years out in tax planning because they've got great figured numbers. We can actually tell them what their tax results are going to be based on those numbers.
And do you think that helps your farmers make decisions to maybe change some plans?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. They can make proactive decisions to move income out, bring expenses forward, or whatever it is they're doing from a tax planning perspective. Decisions on how to sell cotton into a pool or whatever the situation might be that changes the tax outcome.
Great. And Mark,
it's quite a simple conversation. If I reference a grazing client, a grazing business is quite simple. How many DSCs or in Queensland livestock units am I running? And who am I going to sell it to? So we've got the opportunity to boil down some really gutsy, simple points of communication. What am I building and who am I going to sell it to? And then we can make the model changes as circumstances dictate.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark and Pete. We will have another opportunity to discuss again shortly. Now I'm going to show you our scenarios planning and go a little bit deeper. Focusing on why farm planning is important and discussing how it can utilize the whole team. This is our future Annualised planning tool that allows us to forecast up to 10 years into the future. Now, more than ever, farmers are needing to make decisions that will have a long-term impact on their businesses. Using the scenario tool, we can model out a status quo over the next number of years. How does my farm look if I continue to make the same decisions year to year? We can also look at adding in some larger assumptions. Would it be a smarter decision to continue leasing the neighbouring property, or can we plan to purchase it? Can I comfortably retire in the next 5 years and know that there's a financial success plan in place for the next generation? These are just some of the questions where the Figured Scenarios tool can assist these conversations with your clients. The Scenarios tool also provides these key reports as outputs, including cash flow, profit and loss, and balance sheet for the projected plan. It gives the opportunity to look forward, where cash or profits may be heading over the longer term. Notes can be added at the end of the reports to support the plan that has been created, so everyone that looks at the reports can have an overview of why these assumptions were made. Our key indicators are an important part of the scenarios outputs, showing a graphical overview of some key areas. I know in particular that closing cash and interest cover are two that the bank carefully look at to ensure that the farm operation has the capability to fund current or future finance. Creating a scenario is simple. Let's see how we can achieve these outputs. We have the option to start from a blank scenario or import the farm's actual historical data on Figure to get started with ease. We can use that live production and financial data already on hand. It creates relevance and meaning for your farmers. Set your opening position on farm, including all assets and liabilities that exist on farm on the first day of the plan, including any stock on hand and the opening cash position. Moving to the new proposition of the plan, we can easily add in any new assets, if any, that will be purchased. This could be land, machinery, or any other asset, for example. You will always be given the opportunity to add a funding source directly to this purchase if needed. A new liability is then created against the asset, and all details associated with this new liability are included. The repayments are calculated and added across the plan. The projected income is included, and any production types relevant to the farm can be shown independently, similar to our trackers. These values can be copied across and included as the same value each year, or easily edited if the values are expected to change. For example, if more milk was to be produced, if less area was planted for a particular crop, less stock was sold, or values are expected to increase. The plan can be shown to account for all of these options. Forecasted expenses relating to the plan are also included. This allows to forecast expenses equally or make changes to increase or decrease year on year. Any one-off spending, for example, some capital expenditure, can also be allowed for. Once the plan is finalised, it is very easy to export these key reports and share them with a wider team so that everyone is across the plan in place. For example, our farmer, accountant, agri-consultant, and bank manager can all be provided with the same set of reports for the long-term plan in place for the farm. I use this tool quite heavily in Ireland to assist farmers on looking at the capacity of their farm, whether that was for some internal farm discussions such as expansion, by including the purchase of extra stock and also accounting for increased production income. This allowed them to see if the idea may or may not be profitable and the cash flow implications before taking action on it. Or also, I use the scenarios to assist in external discussions alongside the bank for maybe the purchase of land and the capability of the farm to achieve these future loan repayments. For you to become aligned with your farm clients and have these planning discussions before some major decisions are made will benefit the entire business long term. Let's open this one up to the panel again. Pete, firstly, how does using Figured help to solve some of these longer term plans for the farmers that come to you for discussions?
Look, it's an incredibly powerful tool. Clients that have presented scenario plans to bankers are quite shocked by the bankers' response, in terms of bankers are genuinely excited to see longer term views. But from a risk management perspective as well, it's critical that farm businesses, firstly, are viable, and secondly, are looking at how sustainable and robust they are over the longer term. If you're going to discuss succession planning with a client, the first step is to actually make sure that the farm business is viable and sustainable. We don't want to hand on something that isn't. But the longer I've worked in this business, the longer my framework. I don't get so worried about a client who has a bad year. We all have droughts and flooding rains, and they're not necessarily meteorological. We've had some droughts and flooding rains with interest rates and livestock prices in Australia recently. But it's a real advantage, and provides that confidence again for clients to be able to sit down and map out the next 7 years, program in a couple of bad years, and build a business and a financial system that's going to cope with those sort of events. So I just think it's so critical that we take a longer term view on things, look right out the windscreen, not just looking at the next 5 meters in front of us.
Yeah, definitely. So you use it for both internal and external use with your farmers?
Yeah, and buying and selling farms and things like that, use the process for that. But I find that if a client walks in, you can't pick up scenario planning to start implementing it to look at a buy-sell equation on farm. You have to have that system already established in advance and be using it in advance, and people familiar with it. You just can't do it on the event. So it's getting those systems and processes in place. But farming is long term. We've got clients, 5, 6 generations of farming. So what's that, 150 years? I'm not saying you need to extend your product to 150 years, but we should be looking 10 years out, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Mark, do you have any comments on the importance of long-term planning for farm businesses?
I quite share Pete's view, and I think Pete touched on a very significant conversation around risk, and I think that there's 3 parts to that. By modelling out some of these scenarios, we actually ask clients to come to a view of what sort of level, what is their appetite for risk, and it changes. I've said this a few times, but by putting these scenarios in front of people, so does this equate with where you want to go? Do you want certainty? Are you prepared to take opportunities? That might be a case of hurry up and wait. We won't sell on profile. Can I make that type of decision? And also modelling those significant variables that make or break a farm business, and that drives the risk management strategy. So the conversation of, what sort of return should I be getting, should also be framed in the same context as what sort of risk are you prepared to take. So that scenario planning helps guide that same discussion that said, is this an acceptable outcome? Or are you preparing to take an approach that preserves capital for a lesser return? There's no right or wrong answer, but we're setting ourselves up to ask those particular types of questions. As I said, identify those variables that make a significant impact, and then we manage to that.
You learn more
and I
about
think
your
sometimes.
farm business. Sorry, Darren.
Go
You
ahead,
learn
Pete.
more about your farm business the more effort you put into understanding the numbers. Simple as that.
And I think by putting the ideas onto paper in financial terms, being able to look forward across a longer term plan, you can see what you're working towards, and if you need to make changes to what the plan is going to be, and if it will or will not work, I think that's just as important, that you can make decisions before you action them. Great. Thanks so much, Pete and Mark, for sharing those thoughts and points with us around the use of the different cases, and the value that it brings to your clients. So, well, those were just a few key examples. There is so much more. We have done demos like this for almost every feature in the Figure platform, detailing what the output is, why it's important, and the type of conversation it enables you to have with your farming clients. Again, the point here is that you have an agri-specific output that can be delivered out of the box with Figured and your accounting software. They're just right at your fingertips.
Thanks, Darren. Now, you might remember the slide that we shared earlier. When you take the future-facing services and identify a particular cadence of engagement based off of your client needs, you really quickly get to what starts to resemble a productized, scalable agri advisory service. And that's really the ultimate end game and vision. And this approach is how Figure partners establish high-value services in a really short period of time. And it can be delivered by the whole team within your practice. It comes out of the box. So each of these packages, essentially, they map back to different customer segments you've identified and prioritized. And then they tap into the out-of-the-box tools that will help you deliver them. And of course, this means that it gives you the opportunity to focus on value-based pricing. Just because it takes less time to provide that service and produce those outputs shouldn't mean that it makes it less valuable. Your farmers are practical people. When they see an output and how a discussion with you can impact their bottom line or overall yield for the season ahead, they're not going to hesitate when it comes to making that smart business decision. And something that's also worthwhile to know is that this isn't something, again, that only your most senior people in your team will do. When it's productized, it's something that you can actually extend across your whole team. It's a way to build more capability and more power within your practice to provide these services, and ultimately add value to your clients' businesses. So the big question, how can we help you next? So we know that often taking the first step can be the most challenging. So we're really excited to launch a new pilot program designed to make it easy and set you up for success. After working with accounting firms across the country and around the world, we've identified the common barriers that make it hard for firms to get started, and we've created easy to execute solutions that will help you overcome them. This isn't a big transformation project. It's designed to start with small steps to set you up for success with easy wins with a set number of clients. This is about taking action and realizing value today. We'll help you and your farm clients experience the value of agriculture-specific accounting tools without disrupting your current workflows or processes. Through these pilot programs, you'll receive comprehensive training and support to help you quickly get up to speed, comfortable using Figured's ag-specific planning and reporting tools, and ready to have that conversation with your clients. We'll help you prioritize key features that will deliver the most value to you and your clients throughout this pilot program, and we'll help you identify the right areas for you to expand into post-pilot. So just to give everyone a head start on really getting started, I'm going to launch a poll in a second, and there'll be 3 options that you can choose from. Essentially, one is if you're new to Figured and keen to learn more about the product, you'll be able to get a product overview. And if you're interested in taking action on what we've discussed today, then we have this pilot program, or the planning pilot program. It's designed to help you start planning with a specific subset of clients in a really guided and controlled way so that, we really ensure that success for you. And if you're already with Figured, where we have a scaling planning offer in the market where we're going to provide free 2-year forecasts for firms that are already on Figured and have 10 or more farming clients that they want to upgrade to our Farm Manager product. So I'll just launch the poll over here. So feel free to put in your answers here. Again, if you're interested in learning more, we provide a product overview. And that's really, we'll be able to provide some in-depth product demos with you. If you're interested in what Darren shared with you today and what Pete and Mark shared in how they use Figured, we'll be able to share that as well with you. If you're interested in getting planning with more of your clients, then we encourage you to take advantage of the planning pilot program. Again, this is designed to be a really efficient way to help you start scaling your planning services, or establish and then scale them. We've worked with a number of clients around the world and in Australia, and we've really designed a very clear, guided, and sort of controlled way for you to establish that service with Figured, help you take it to your clients, help you communicate the value of your services. And it's really, it's designed to make sure that you're not sort of left alone to figure it out for yourself. We've done this a lot of times with a bunch of different clients, and this is really a great way to get started. I just leave it up a little bit longer for any remaining people to put in their responses, and then we'll move on. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. Any last remaining submissions? You can get them in now. Looks like a couple more rolling in. Cool. Okay, well, I'll end it there. If anyone wants to get in touch, wasn't able to respond, if you joined from a meeting room, for example, where you weren't able to click an option, then we'll send an email after this, and you'll be able to reply to that and get in touch with us and let us know how we can help you. So yeah, with that, I'll wrap it up. We're at time, 5 minutes left in the hour. And yeah, I just thought I'd let you know that there's an email going out. Pete and Mark have very generously offered to provide their emails for everyone on this webinar here to contact them, ask them any questions, and have a chat around what they see as being really the key steps to getting started with this. So yeah, thank you, Pete and Mark. Thank you so much for having us. For anyone on this webinar, feel free to log off. You need to get ready for your next meeting, but I'll just hang on. We'll just hang around for maybe 5 more minutes. Just share some closing thoughts. There's a couple questions that came in through the Q&A, so we'll answer those. So yeah, on that note, Pete, yeah, what do you think is any closing thoughts? Anything you'd encourage the attendees here today to start thinking about?
I heard a great quote recently, which was valuable to the extent it gave me the words to talk about our business. There was a speaker on a podcast who said that 80% of accountants in Australia are like statisticians at the end of a car rally race. tell you how far you've travelled and how much fuel you've used and average kilometres and things like that. 20% of accountants in Australia are navigators sitting in the car next to their clients, looking out the windscreen at the way forward. I think people need to decide, firstly, within their business, what they want to be as an accountant. And I think there's pressure on us all to head more down the advisory route, because compliance is becoming very commoditized, and might be taken over by AI. But I think I think without a doubt, there's decisions to be made by accounting firms on how they want their business to be over the next 5 years. And there's nothing wrong with retaining a compliance focus, but we made a decision to outsource most of our compliance work in 2007. So we made that decision way back then. And then we've made a lot of investment into establishing advisory services and our investment in Figured, and training ourselves and training our clients up to make it all work. So it's been a considerable investment, but at the same time, it's created great marketing opportunities for our business and growth, because we do things differently from 80% of the accountants that are out there.
I think, you're sitting back and listening to the presentation and let's come to what our clients' environment looks like. It's one characterised by significant asset appreciation in the last 5 years specifically. Livestock values have moved quite significantly, both positive and negatively. Grain prices the same. So I think our clients are sitting in a realm of some unrealised opportunity, but there's a great deal of risk. So they're looking for skills and attributes and looking for guidance, how to take those things. And I see what you guys have put together is a great foundation tool to start those next level conversations. So today's been about Figured, but today's about so Pete's analogy about the rally, well, this is the start line. It's the one that's getting a lot of air on social media at the moment is around succession. And I frame that succession conversation, the most important part of that succession conversation is contained in the first 7 letters. And we're wanting to set our clients up to succeed, and this is one of the tools to do that. So my advice to those attending is to look at Figured, be prepared to invest some time to get the first 2 or 3 going, and it'll be a bit wooden and it'll be a bit hard work because it's something new, but it flows after that, and then you build a consistent process of which you build the capacity of your wider client base.
I might just make 2 comments just following from that. There was a great article in yesterday's Financial Review about farm succession, but fundamentally, clients that we work with, if you run your farm as a business and you're having regular communication of all family members in monthly meetings, and you're looking at it from a business perspective, our experience is that clients that have been through those processes, they have a very clear plan, they know their numbers, they have a clear governance and communication process and job descriptions for family members. If you've got all that in place, succession is so much easier because we've been having the discussions. Whereas if you don't have that in place, succession's much harder. And farm businesses are not small businesses anymore. They're big and lumpy. There's a stat of the net wealth of Australian households. The top 10% of Australian households have a net wealth of about $5.4 million. And that number stunned me. I thought it was I thought the real number would have been much higher, but $5.4 million is the average wealth of the top 10% of Australian households. That put nearly every one of my clients into the top 10% when I read that stat. They're big businesses, and we can't use outdated accounting and financial reporting systems. We can't do things the way we did 10, 20 years ago, because we're now dealing with big assets, risks, and substantially bigger numbers right across the board. And we need to have systems and processes within our business that are suitable and appropriate. We need to have employment systems if we're employing people. And we just can't have a bloke working for us and we have a chat with once every now and again. We actually need to run professional businesses.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, maybe we'll wrap it up there. We're just past the hour now. I don't want to keep everyone holding on for too much longer. But yeah, really, thank you guys so much for being part of this. We really appreciate it. And hope everyone on this webinar too had a found it interesting, found something valuable. And we're really excited to have a chat with you guys more and to get into this together. Thank you, everyone.